This happened about 3 years ago. It was late at night, probably around 3 or 4 a.m., and I was lying in bed trying to sleep. But my girlfriend and I were arguing over something stupid. I don't even remember what it was now, but it had been going on for hours, and neither of us would back down. I was getting really frustrated. All of a sudden, my bedside lamp turned off. This wasn't weird because we have a smart bulb in there that turns off automatically when it senses no movement. What was weird was that it turned itself back on a few seconds later, with the lights still being off, but now the plug-in part was flashing an amber color. I told my girlfriend to ignore it and went back to trying to fall asleep. A couple minutes passed, and I heard a click from the lamp again. But this time it was definitely louder than before, and it was followed by a buzzing sound from the device. My girlfriend and I both sat up in bed and stared at the lamp. The light was still off, but now the entire thing was pulsing with this amber light coming from the plug-in portion of it. We were both scared at this point and just stared at it for what felt like forever, although it probably only lasted a few seconds. My girlfriend asked if I should call my landlord and ask him to come check out the wiring in the apartment, since we had only moved in a week earlier. Said no, and reached out to turn the lamp off at the plug. When I did this, I noticed that the cord didn't seem to be plugged in all the way. I tried to push it in further, but it was firmly stuck and wouldn't budge. Once I looked closer, I realized that it wasn't actually a plug-in style lamp at all. The cord was fused into the base of it. I don't remember exactly what it looked like, but I do know it wasn't like a normal plug-in that could be pulled out and checked. It was more like one of those lamps that has the plug fused into the cord, which can never be unplugged, and you always have to use the exact cord it comes with. I got up out of bed and walked over to our dresser where we kept some tools in a box. I grabbed a pair of pliers and went back to the lamp to try to pull the cord out. When I did this, however, it ripped right out of the base and came apart. I stared at the broken pieces in my hand and then ran to the bathroom to look at the cord more closely. It appeared to be normal at first glance. It was wrapped in a rubber coating, and there were 2 wires visible inside. However, upon closer inspection, I saw that there were thin black lines running vertically across the cord. They were hard to see and almost looked like scratches, but there was something strange about them. It didn't look like any type of damage I'd seen on a frayed electrical cord before. It just didn't make sense. My girlfriend and I decided it was best to call my landlord and explain the situation to him. He lives about an hour away, so he couldn't come right over, but he did say he'd stop by later that evening after work. By the time he arrived, I had already thrown away the cord and plugged the lamp back in to show him what had happened. Of course, it didn't turn on because the cord was in a million pieces and taped into the wall. I explained what had happened earlier in the night and showed him the spot where the cord had been plugged in. He took one look at the socket and said, "Oh yeah, I know what happened here." I asked what he meant, and he said, "Well, that socket is wired backwards. That's why the cord tore apart like that. You see, that's not actually a plug-in socket. It's supposed to be connected to the alarm system in the house. I guess someone wired it wrong and used it for the lamp instead." I asked him why the lamp was pulsing like that, and he shrugged his shoulders. "Beats me?" asked the previous tenant. "All I know is that that's not a plug-in socket and it's definitely not safe. That poor cord didn't stand a chance against it." He used his phone to quickly check the wiring in the house and found that the alarm system was unhooked up anywhere. He sighed and said, "I gotta call an electrician. It's gonna cost me a pretty penny," and he left to go take care of it. After the landlord left, my girlfriend and I decided to go get some breakfast at a diner. On the walk there, I couldn't help but think back to the strange black markings on the cord. I told my girlfriend my thoughts, and she suggested I make a post on Reddit to see if anyone else had an explanation. I did this when we got home and got a bunch of responses. A lot of people thought it was cool and interesting, but most thought it was a bit stupid to worry about such a small thing. One person gave me a good theory, though, and they said it looked like a stripped wire underneath the rubber coating. They suggested that I scrape some of the rubber off to see if I could find the other end of the wire inside the cord. I got a utility knife from my toolbox and scraped off a section of the rubber covering. There was no other wire underneath, and the insulation was intact. Whatever those lines were, they weren't caused by a stripped wire. I posted an update on Reddit with my findings, and a few hours later my landlord called me. He let me know he had an electrician come by and inspect the wiring in the apartment. He also said that the electrician found some pretty old coax cables hiding in the wall behind the lamp socket. Apparently, they were from a previous tenant who had satellite TV installed, but they had removed it before moving out. The electrician assumed that someone used the coax cable as a makeshift extension cord for the lamp. But that didn't explain why it ripped apart or why the cord looked like it had been burned. The electrician suggested that I bring the cord to a hardware store and see if they could figure out what the markings were. So that's what I did. I brought it in, and one of the employees took a look at it. He said, "Wow, that looks pretty bad." I asked him if he knew what the lines on the cord were, and he replied, "Those aren't scratches. That's teeth marks. Something big was gnawing on your electric cord." I laughed at first until I realized that he was serious. I asked him if he was joking, but he just shook his head and pointed at the trash can in the corner. I walked over and looked inside, and that's when I saw it. Half of a squirrel's tail was sticking out of the trash bag. I quickly opened the bag and pulled the rest of its body out. It was a small squirrel with brown fur, and its belly was completely white. It looked very much like a normal squirrel, but something was off about it. Its eyes were way bigger than normal, and its teeth were way sharper too. What? It looked kind of like a rat, but I knew it was a squirrel. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that the tip of its tail was missing. This made me realize what those teeth marks actually were. Someone or something had been chewing on the squirrel's tail and it had fought back, leaving teeth marks on the cord as it desperately tried to free itself from whatever trap it was in. It had lost the battle, though, and was now dead. I threw the squirrel back in the trash can, and the employee offered me a shovel so I could bury it in the dirt outside. After burying the squirrel, I went back inside and bought a new lamp. I never did find out who put the socket in backwards, but I'm glad I got rid of that creepy lamp.